بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على النبي الأمي برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. With Allah's fadl, as we continue with the discussion on the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, namely Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu, and we have to remember the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had such close ties with the Sahaba radiallahu anhum because they were also Sahaba. The family of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was Sahaba radiallahu anhum themselves. So they came and they were together and on the same team. As Ibn Jabir Andalusi rahimahullah beautifully renders, wherein he says, أزكى الصلاة على الهادي وعترته وصحبه وخصوصا منهم عشرة صديقهم عمر الفاروق أحزمهم عثمان ثم علي مهلك الفجرة سعد سعيد زبير طلحة وأبو عبيدة وابن عوف عاشر البررة وحمزة ثم عباس وآلهما وجعفر وعقيل سادة خيرا وفي خديجة والزهراء وما ولدت لدي مدح سأهدي دائما دررا عن كل أزواجه أرضى وأوثر من أضحت براءتها في الذكر مستطرة أولئك الناس آل المصطفى وكفى وصحبه المهتدون السادة الخيرة أقسمت لا زلت أهديهم شذا مدح كالراضي ينشر من أكمامه زهرة. He says, I send the choicest of greetings upon the beloved of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I send salawat, salams and durood upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his relatives and his sahaba radiyallahu anhum. And from all, especially 10, Siddiquhum. The most special is Siddiq, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu. Then Al-Faruq, Umar Faruq, the most wise of all. Hazrat Uthman radiyallahu anhu. Then Hazrat Ali radiyallahu anhu. These two who destroyed the forces of Batil. Then the other of the Ashara Mubashara, Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas, Sa'id bin Zayd, Zubayr bin Awwam, Talha bin Ubaidillah, Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah, Abdul Rahman bin Auf, radiyallahu anhum. Then he mentions Hamzah and Hazrat Abbas, radiyallahu anhum, and their relatives, and Ja'far and Aqil, such leaders, such special people. وَفِي خَدِيجَةَ وَالزَّهْرَى وَمَا وَلَدَتْ. He says, and also, we remember Hazrat Khadija radiyallahu anha and Fatima Zahra radiyallahu anha. He says, we praise all the Sahaba and the family of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam with pearls, da'iman durara. And we love and respect all the Azwaj Mutahharat radiyallahu anhun, an kulli azwajihi arda wa uthiru man. And the most special of the blessed wives of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that one who Allah liberated her, and Allah revealed verses to explain her purity and her status, in verses enshrined in the Quran forever and ever. أُولَٰئِكَ النَّاسُ آلُ الْمُصْطَفَى وَكَفَى. These people are the people of Mustafa وَكَفَى وَصَحْبُهُ al-muhtadun, and his rightly guided Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, who leaded humanity and who were the choicest of all people. Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq to love the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and may Allah enable us to respect them. So let's remember Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu's Islam. It was so interesting how love for Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and standing up to defend Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam became the means of his hidayat. Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu's kunya, his appellation title, was after his sons, Ya'la and Umara. So Abu Ya'la at times he was addressed, and at others he was known as Abu Umara, Ya Aba Umara. Let's remember that his Islam was a great blow to the forces of Batil and the forces of paganism. Because him becoming Muslim also gave Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu the himmat, because not long after that Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu became Muslim, and the both of them stood by the side of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and supported the deen of Allah Ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave honor to his Mubarak deen through Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu and Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu. Yes, he had no fear for anyone, and he dearly gave his life in defending the deen of Allah Ta'ala. When Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would go and meet people and invite people, Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu gave him lots of support. not concealing his deen in the least, but openly announcing to humanity that he is Muslim and is proud to be Muslim. Even in the time of Hijrah, he made Hijrah in Allah's path openly. When he got to Medina Munawwara, Allah's Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam established the pact of brotherhood during the Meccan stage and in the Medinan stage between Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu and Hazrat Zayd bin Haritha radiallahu anhu, who was also beloved to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu arrived in Medina Munawwara as well, the Sahabi radiallahu anhu that he resided by was Hazrat Kulthum ibn al-Hidm radiallahu anhu. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam also resided there. Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu also was welcomed there and he was hosted there. A great Sahabi. His residence still remains aloof and still remains raised and preserved in Medina Munawwara. And Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam had brotherhood created between him and Zayd radiallahu anhu. That's why even on the occasion of Uhud, the mirath, the inheritance left behind by Hamzah radiallahu anhu was received by his brother Hazrat Zayd radiallahu anhu. Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah mentions that the first banner established in Islam was that of Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent Sahabar radiallahu anhu to a region near the oceans, and Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam tied the banner for Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu to be the Amir. He was known as the first Ghazi in the path of Allah. Awwalu Ghazin fi sabilillahi azza wa jal. Yes, Hazrat Zayd radiallahu anhu inherited from Hamzah radiallahu anhu because the law of abrogating this sort of inheritance from this brotherhood was much later. So that this was still the initial stages when Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu left this world in Uhud. Anyway, then came the time of Badr. Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu was very brave. He never concealed his deen. And he put himself forward to serve the deen of Allah, assisting Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam during his efforts in Makkah Mukarramah, openly advocating the deen of Allah, openly expressing the fact that he is Muslim and explaining the beauty of the deen of Allah Ta'ala. He greatly supported Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam during Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam's efforts during the Hajj and inviting the tribes to Allah Ta'ala. Amongst the Muhajirin, he made Hijrah to Medina Munawwara early. Yes, he did not migrate to Abyssinia because he didn't fear any threat from the Mushrikeen, because they actually still had fear for him. They had worry. They cannot do anything against Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu, because he had that flair and that valor and that bravery and that courage that he demanded respect. Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu. And through that, he also did not conceal his deen. Just one point to share, respected listeners and lovers of Sahabar radiallahu anhum. See how Hamzah radiallahu anhu portrayed his deen. He never felt shy to be a Muslim. This is something very, very important. Allah blessed us. We live in such an environment that Muslims are respected. Why should we conceal our deen? Why should we keep our deen to ourselves? Share our deen. Show our deen. Invite to our deen. Just today we were with a brother, a revered brother. He embraced Islam 7 months ago. He was explaining that for years, he says, now I'm 70. I've been a teacher all my life, a missionary to different countries of the world. He says, I never ever thought of coming to Islam. Is because Muslims were never welcoming to us. They always kept to themselves. And we, in our community, we felt that they were concealing something and hiding something. So we never felt welcome, and we never felt that we could actually approach Islam. So we thought it's not something for us. So we learned from Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu, do not keep our deen to ourselves, but share it. We should be proud of our deen. We should be proud of being Muslims. Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu did not make Hijrah to Abyssinia, but he made Hijrah to Medina Munawwara, because this was the order of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In Medina Munawwara as well, he was welcomed by Hazrat Kulthum ibn al-Hidm radiallahu anhu. The Sahabi's home up till today stands in Medina Munawwara, because this Sahabi also welcomed and hosted Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There as well, Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam created a pact of brotherhood between himself and Hazrat Zayd bin Haritha radiallahu anhu. So they were brothers and they were very, very close. More so even when before Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu participated in Uhud, his will was that Hazrat Zayd, his brother, should inherit from him, and that's what happened. Because that was still in the initial Medinan stages where this sort of inheritance was not abrogated yet. Something else, during the Medinan stage, the first banner tied by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was tied for Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu. So he was the first to come out in the path of Allah. He was the Amir. So he was the first Ghazi to strive in Allah Ta'ala's path. That was none other than Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu. Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent him to the seashore, ila sea fil bahr, an area called Al-Ais. and with him was Ubaidah bin Harith radiyallahu anhu, his Hazrat Ubaidah bin Harith bin Muttalib. Al-Muttalib was the uncle of Abdul Muttalib. He was the brother of Hashim, the forefather of Janabi Rasulullah. He also participated in this expedition. That's why some reports in Sirah state that Hazrat Ubaidah was the Amir. Not long after that, Hazrat Ubaidah also became Shaheed in Uhud. He was with Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu in that initial duel during the Battle of Badr. They both participated in this expedition, and this report states that Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu was the Amir. They get to an area where they encountered Abu Jahl with the caravan of Quraysh, 300 of them, and this battle and this duel was about to start, and there was a man who came between the two parties. His name was Majdi bin Amr, and he stopped this expedition, so that battle didn't continue further. There is a beautiful shi'r, some verses of poetry, some attributed to Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu after this initial expedition, wherein he says that بأمر رسول الله أول خافق عليه لواء لم يكن لاح من قبلي لواء لديه النصر من ذي كرامة إله عزيز فعله أفضل الفعل وما نحن إلا في 30 راكبا وهم 200 بعد واحدة فضلي. He says, with the order of Rasulullah ﷺ, I carried the first banner that throbbed in Allah Ta'ala's path. Banner of nobility Rasulullah ﷺ gave me, and this came from the side of the most noble Allah, whose actions are the best. We were but 30, and the enemy were 200 after another 100, so 300. Quite a few expeditions after that, Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu also carried the banner. These are called ghazawat. When Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam participated with Sahabar radiyallahu anhum, the Arabic word used to refer to that expedition is ghazwa. When Allah's Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sent Sahabar radiyallahu anhum out and he himself did not participate, that would be known as sariya, a smaller platoon, and ghazwa, a bigger expedition, just a different word because of the presence of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam amongst them. So in these ghazawat, wherein one was the ghazwa of Banu Qaynuqa' against the Jews who were treacherous, Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu carried the banner. The other was Ghazwatul Abwa, where Sahaba went to this famous area, Abwa. Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu carried the banner. Abwa is the famous place where Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's mother left this world, that is Abwa. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sahaba went to that region against one tribe, Banu Bakr ibn Abdi Manah. Another expedition was Ghazwatul Ushayra. There as well, Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu carried the banner. So he was known for his valor and bravery, and he was ready to serve Allah's deen and to portray the deen of Allah Ta'ala and to protect and defend the deen of Allah Ta'ala. And he never used to hide his identity. In these expeditions, Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu would show his bravery and valor, where people wouldn't generally have a mark on them. Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu was famous for his mark, for his sign. He would tie an ostrich feather to himself, Rishatu Na'ama. Some feel that maybe it was tied to his turban, but actually it's explicit in reports that actually he tied it to his chest, showing anyone looking for him that, yeah, I am, you don't have to look far, I welcome your challenge. This was the bravery of Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu. Even during the expedition of Badr, one of the greatest support to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was from the side of Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu. Often Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would call for him and take his mashura. Like in Musnad it's mentioned that when the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum were in their rows, and the mushrikeen, amongst them was a man on a red camel, رَجُلٌ مِّنْهُمْ عَلَى جَمَلٍ لَهُ أَحْمَرٍ, and he was saying something to them. Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to Hazrat Ali radiyallahu anhu, "Nadi li Hamza, call Hazrat Hamza for me." And when Hazrat Hamza radiyallahu anhu came, Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him, why was Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu called? Because he was right in front, in the front row, with valorism and bravery. So Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu comes forward, Allah's Nabi asks him that, Man sahibul jamal al-ahmar, in the distance there, who's riding that red camel? What is he saying to them? This was the intelligence of Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu. From the distance, he could hear what the mushrikeen were speaking among themselves. Anyway, we learn a lesson here. Obviously, this is battle, this is expedition. We have to hear what is going on, we have to know what is going on. In normal circumstances, eavesdropping is something despicable and discouraged, actually prohibited in the deen of Allah Ta'ala. I was just learning one amazing report in the tafsir of Surah Hujurat, where Allah Ta'ala says, وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا, do not carry tales and so forth. Allama Qurtubi rahimahullah narrates a very interesting incident. wherein a man had gone to bury his sister after she had passed away. She was very ill. He visited her. When she passed away, he buried her. And in that, while doing her burial and so forth, his wallet with his wealth had fallen in there. So he realized what had happened. When he went later and he started to dig the grave, he found that there were fumes and fires and punishments inside his sister's grave. He rushed home in this frenzy and in this worry, explaining or asking his mother, what were the deeds of my sister? What's wrong? What went wrong? Mother asked, what do you mean? So he then had to explain to his mother what he saw. She said, you see, your sister used to delay her salah. And the other is she used to always eavesdrop, sitting near the neighbors' rooms and the neighbors' houses, hearing what people have to say and spreading those stories of theirs. Allah Ta'ala save us from this despicable quality. Anyway, for battle and expedition, Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu had this alertness and so forth. In this condition, it is certainly meritorious. Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam then said to the Sahabaar radiallahu anhum, among the mushrikeen, if there is any good in any of them, it would be in the man riding the red camel. And Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu mentioned to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam that is Utbah bin Rabi'ah. And so true, what had happened was, Utbah was trying to convince the mushrikeen, why should we fight the people of Medina? They are minding their own business. Why do we want to instigate? Why do we want to make trouble? Why can't we let them be? So many of them are our relatives. Abu Jahl was worried that Utbah's influence would then convince people to return. So that's why he actually aroused everyone to turn against Utbah, insulting Utbah, making Utbah feel chicken-hearted. So he said, Intafakha wallahi sahruk. He says, Utbah, your chest is filled with fear and horror for them. Don't worry. You are worried that they're going to defeat us. We're going to crush them and devour them and defeat them. And the other thing, Utbah, are you just scared because you know your son is amongst them, Abu Hudhayfa, great Sahabi Abu Hudhayfa radiallahu anhu, who was a Muslim. So he insulted Utbah in this manner. And Utbah now turned his entire efforts, and now he had to prove himself, because this is how dangerous it could be. Peer pressure. Someone is saying the right thing, but because of pressure, and Abu Jahl had his way of enticing people and influencing people towards the wrong. Allah Ta'ala save us. Allah make us of those who will encourage and inspire people towards the correct path. Allah save us from enticing and influencing people wrongly. And may Allah save us from taking effect from shaitan's insinuations and shaitan's people's whisperings and troubles that they cause. Allah save us. Because Utbah didn't want to be called a coward, he now in the expedition had to show his bravery. That's why he did what he did in Badr that we all learned. Anyway, our point was here, Rasulullah ﷺ called Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu to ask him certain informations internally and to make mashura with him. The first of the mushrikeen was Al-Aswad ibn Abd al-Asad al-Makhzumi. He had come forth and he wanted to drink from the pond of the Muslims. And then Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu stopped him and didn't allow that. And a duel took place. Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu defeated Al-Aswad in that first duel. When Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu won in that first duel, then Utbah bin Rabi'ah from Abd Shami, the Abd Shams tribe, Abd Shams, and his brother Shayba bin Rabi'ah, famous people. Can you remember the incident of Taif when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam traveled to Taif and he suffered so much in the cause of Allah Ta'ala, and then a young man by the name of Addas brought grapes for Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and Addas, because of associating with Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and interacting with him, accepted Islam and embraced the deen and kissed the Mubarak feet of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That grapes was actually sent by Utbah and Shayba. They had this farm in Taif. So the two of them come forward with Utbah's son Walid. Anyway, that individual, Al-Addas radiallahu anhu, embraced Islam. He actually, before Utbah's departure to fight the Muslims in Badr, he begged his master saying, don't fight against this man. The man you're going to fight is the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why Addas did not participate in Badr on the side of the mushrikeen, because he was a Muslim and he embraced Islam because of that one encounter with Janabi Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah give us tawfiq that when we associate with people, we become a means of them embracing deen and connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anyway, the three of them come forward boasting and raving and ranting and shouting, saying that who is there? Come forward. We want suitable partners and opponents to come and challenge us. three youth of the Ansar come forward. But they said, we do not want you. We want the courageous amongst you. They wanted Quraysh because Utbah wanted to prove himself. And this is how far this peer pressure had taken him. Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam then said to Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, Qum ya Ali, Qum ya Hamzah, Qum ya Ubaidah ibn al-Harith bin al-Muttalib radiyallahu anhum. These three Sahaba radiyallahu anhum were sent forward to initiate this expedition with this second duel. The duel, it was Ubaidah radiyallahu anhu who stood against Utbah bin Rabi'ah, and Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu against Shaybah. Ubaidah and Utbah were the most senior of age, and Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu against Walid, who both were young. Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu very quickly defeated his opponent, Shaybah. And Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu very quickly defeated Walid. But there was a longer duel between Hazrat Ubaidah radiallahu anhu and Utbah. And towards the end, they both had struck each other fatally. There is permission for those in the duel to help each other. So the two of them, Hazrat Hamzah and Hazrat Ali radiyallahu anhuma, helped Hazrat Ubaidah radiyallahu anhu against Utbah, and he was finished off. And then Hazrat Ubaidah radiyallahu anhu was carried to the side of the Muslims, and he was taken for treatment. But his shin was cut off, and his blood was flowing profusely. Allah's Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam let him rest on his own Mubarak leg, and Allah's Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gave him glad tidings of Jannah. Amazing are the words of poetry that Hazrat Ubaidah radiyallahu anhu rendered there in the praise of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He said, O Nabi of Allah, Allah Ta'ala gave me tawfiq to practice those words of Abu Talib, wherein he said, كَذَبْتُمْ وَبَيْتِ اللَّهِ نُبْزَى مُحَمَّدًا وَلَمَّا نُطَاعِنُ دُونَهُ وَنُنَاضِلِ وَنُسْلِمُهُ حَتَّى نُصَرَّعَ حَوْلَهُ وَنَذْهَلُ عَنْ أَبْنَائِنَا وَالْحَلَائِلِ. He says, you lie. He's addressing humanity. You are false when you claim that we can forsake Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. No ways. We will never forsake him. We will defend him. We'll give our lives in defending Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and defending the cause of our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَنُسْلِمُهُ, we will never hand him over. حَتَّى نُصَرَّعَ حَوْلَهُ, until our bodies will be lined up around him dead. Then only you might be able to take him. But with our last breaths, we will never allow it. We will even neglect our own children and our own women folk. But Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and the deen of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam will be preserved with the last fiber and strength in our being. As Hazrat Ubaidah radiyallahu anhu was placing his cheek on the blessed feet of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he asked, O Nabi of Allah, am I a shaheed? Will Allah reward me with the virtue and the rankings of a shaheed? Allah's Nabi said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, I bear witness that you will be in Allah's books. You will be a shaheed. Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam took lots of care for Hazrat Ubaidah radiyallahu anhu. On the return journey, at an area called Safra, Hazrat Ubaidah radiyallahu anhu passed away and was buried right there. It's reported that on one expedition, Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was traveling. He passed that area, and Sahabaar radiyallahu anhum found the fragrance of musk. And they were shocked, and when they asked Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah's Nabi said, certainly, because here is the qabr of Abu Muawiyah, and Abu Muawiyah was the appellation of Hazrat Ubaidah bin Harith radiyallahu anhu. Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would take such care for his Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, that even Hazrat Ubaidah bin Harith's widow, Hazrat Zainab binti Khuzaimah radiyallahu anha, after her iddah, Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam proposed for her and married her, and she became Ummul Mu'mineen. This was the environment of Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, that they had this level of respect for one another and care for one another, and understanding that the Sahabi has passed away in Allah's path, who will care and see to his family. Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's wedding her was actually a sign of the appreciation he had for the sacrifice of Hazrat Ubaidah radiyallahu anhu, alongside Hamzah radiyallahu anhu, in the path of Allah Ta'ala, in the cause of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu featured so great in all these expeditions, especially Badr. He had his na'ama, his feather of the ostrich. He was known by that. There were few Sahaba radiyallahu anhum known by these signs. There were a few Sahaba radiyallahu anhum would wear certain signs in these expeditions for their bravery. Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu would wear this feather of this ostrich. Hazrat Ali radiyallahu anhu had a certain sign. Hazrat Abu Dujana radiyallahu anhu used to wear a red banner, a red band. Hazrat Hamzah radiyallahu anhu's bravery and valor was known. After the expedition, Hazrat Abdurrahman radiallahu anhu mentions how he went to save Umayyah bin Khalaf. Umayyah bin Khalaf was in a plight. So he asked Hazrat Abdurrahman to help him. That's quite an interesting incident where Hazrat Abdurrahman comes and captures him and his son. And on the way, Hazrat Abdurrahman radiallahu anhu was asked by Umayyah, that man with that feather tied by his chest, who is he? Hazrat Abdurrahman radiallahu anhu said, that is Hamzah bin Abdul Muttalib. So Umayyah said, ذَاكَ الَّذِي فَعَلَ بِنَا الْأَفَاعِيلِ. That man caused havoc for us. He crushed us. He devastated us. He was the main man. This was the bravery of Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu. There's another interesting incident regarding the death of Tu'aymah bin Adi, who was a very famous man from the Quraysh, known for his valor, for his strength, for his size. Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu says, I saw a duel at a distance between Tu'aymah and Hazrat Sa'ad bin Khaythama radiallahu anhu. Sa'ad bin Khaythama radiallahu anhu, that famous Sahabi who actually who casted lots with his father as to who should participate in Badr. The son won the lot and the father had to stay behind. This was that Sahabi. Anyway, during that duel between the two, Tu'aymah killed Hazrat Sa'ad radiallahu anhu. And then Ali radiallahu anhu says, I was going for this man Tu'aymah. And then I saw his size and I didn't want him to be above me. So I retreated a little. And then he started mocking me saying, oh, Ibn Abi Talib has fled. So I said to him, قَرِيبًا مَفَرَّ Ibn الشَّتْرَى. I will flee from you. What do you mean? Ibn al-Shatra was known for his strategy in the past. He was a highway robber where he would attack and then he would retreat and then he would attack again. So Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu, it was known as a statement after that of parable. Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu was telling him that I'm coming for you, don't worry. I'm just waiting for you. And then I waited, and as he comes towards me, I didn't want him to be above me, and we came on the same level, and this duel took place for a while. And then I hear a voice behind me saying, lower your head, Ali. قائلا من خلفي يقول طأطئ رأسك, lower your head. And I just lowered my head, and I see this shine of this metal strike the neck of Tu'aymah, and it severed his head with one blow. And he fell down dead. And when I looked, it was Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu. So Hamzah radiallahu anhu was all around and was everywhere. He was so powerful, so courageous, so brave, fearless he was certainly. Something else very interesting about Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu, that was something very rare, is that he used to fight in battle with two swords. This was the bravery of Hamzah radiallahu anhu. Others would hold a shield in the one hand, a sword in the other. Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu used to hold two swords. Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu. Hazrat Abu Dharr Ghifari radiallahu anhu would take qasam and say this verse in Surah Al-Hajj, verse number 19. هَذَانِ خَصْمَانِ اخْتَصَمُوا فِي رَبِّهِمْ. These are two groups of people who stood up to fight in regards to the cause of their Lord. Hazrat Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu would say, this is regarding and concerning the duel that took place before the Battle of Badr, with regards to Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu, Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu, Hazrat Ubaidah radiallahu anhu. So he would say that this ayah is in regards to these Sahaba radiallahu anhum. Then came the Battle of Uhud, and here the mushrikeen were enraged. They had prepared their men, they had prepared their weapons, and they were charging for Medina Munawwara. Allah's Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam sat in Mashura with Sahaba radiallahu anhum regarding what should be done. Should we defend Medina Munawwara from inside Medina, from within Medina Munawwara, or should we go out towards the enemy and fight them outside Medina Munawwara? And as this Mashura was taking place, many opinions came for going out of Medina Munawwara. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam wanted to hear what his Sahaba radiallahu anhum had to say. At one stage he said we could stay behind and defend from inside. But when he heard his Sahaba radiallahu anhum's view, and they were happy on leaving Medina Munawwara, he passed his decision. He made his decision in their favor, saying that yes, we will all leave Medina Munawwara. Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam went in, he prepared himself, and he came out. Then the Sahaba radiallahu anhum said, O Nabi of Allah, we feel maybe we were insisting on our opinions. Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no, we made mashura. When the decision has taken place, فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ, we place our trust in Allah and we we continue with it. So Sahaba radiallahu anhum were now departing and leaving Medina Munawwara to go towards the enemy, and they were then to meet them on this mountain Uhud. Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul was one who pretended to be Muslim, but he was also there in the Mashura, and his view was we should stay in Medina. But the intentions of his view was actually to hide away and not be part and parcel of the action. But because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's decision was to depart and come out of Medina Munawwara, everyone had to depart. And as the Muslims were arriving at the destination, where the mushrikeen were in front of the Muslims, and the Muslims were making camp, and both parties could actually see each other, at that time, Abdullah bin Ubay started to retreat with his men. The Sahaba radiallahu anhu telling him, why are you doing this? He said, no, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't take my opinion, and he wants to come out of Medina. Whose opinion did he take? Allahu Akbar. He then left the Muslims. The Muslims were numbered at first 1,000 against the large numbers of the mushrikeen, numbering 3,000. Abdullah bin Ubay left with 300 men, and there were just but 700 left. But what was the statement of Abdullah bin Ubay? Why didn't he take my opinion? Ya Allah, this is a practice of a hypocrite. When Mashura takes place, we learn something very, very important. And Mashura is a great amal. In Mashura, there's an Amir. Everyone has a right to present their opinion. We learn in Mashura, put forward our opinions considering the deen of Allah, considering the betterment of the society, considering the betterment of humanity, considering hidayah. And Mashura is to bring hidayah, Allah's guidance and Allah's help, and is to unite the hearts. So sometimes one's opinion can be something, but at the end when the Amir makes the decision, we should happily accept the decision of the Amir. What did Abdullah bin Ubay do? When Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made the decision, outwardly he pretended to agree, but then he started complaining, why wasn't my opinion taken? This is one of the signs of a hypocrite. This is a hypocritical sign. Allah Ta'ala save us. This is when there's diseases in the heart, where one is not happy and one splits the ummah. And look at his strategy. He didn't leave from the beginning. He actually retreated whilst the Muslims were facing the enemy. He actually used this strategy to strengthen the enemy from within, and to crumble the Muslims' morale from within as well. Sahaba radiallahu anhu were telling him, come, don't go away. Why are you departing? Why are you leaving? At least stay, defend us, stay at the back, but don't depart. He said, no, why wasn't my opinion taken? This is hypocritical. This is a hypocrite. Another Sahabi by the side of Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu, who was a great support to him in the battle, was Hazrat Abu Dujana radiallahu anhu. Both of them were defeating the mushrikeen and bringing them down to their knees. No one could actually bring Hamzah radiallahu anhu down. But it took one man who actually couldn't face Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu in open combat. He had to use another strategy, because Hazrat Hamzah was too powerful. He was actually one of the best javelin throwers, meaning this man, Hazrat Wahshi. Wahshi narrates this incident wherein he says, I had nothing to do in this battle. I only came to claim the life of Hazrat Hamzah because I wanted my freedom. Because the relatives of those who had died in Badr were very upset. So they paid Wahshi, and they made deals. They wanted the life of Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu. So Wahshi from a distance, watching Hazrat Hamzah bring people down, finish them off, he could not muster up the courage to come forward. Until he saw an opening in the armor of Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu's, near his belly, the lower belly. And from a distance, he threw the spear of his, and he was known for his precision in throwing the arrow, throwing the spear. And he threw the spear and struck Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu. And he speaks of how scared he was, even though the spear struck Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu. Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu went towards him, but by the time he reached him, death had overcome Hazrat Hamzah radiallahu anhu. Wahshi had nothing else to do. He had fulfilled his objective, and he then went away from the expedition, fulfilling his task, earning his freedom. That's what he wanted.